Welcome to In Depth, your weekly podcast from PressXpress about news and newsmakers from India, Bangladesh, and beyond. We bring you an in depth look at the top stories that are making headlines. I'm Tulika, your host from Delhi. While Bangladesh has announced 7th of January as the date to hold the next general election, this comes amid huge political violence and clashes organized by the opposition party and its allies. In just the last 2 weeks, at least 5 people have been killed, more than 200 wounded, and dozens of vehicles set on fire. Why is the situation so volatile? What can be done to safeguard democracy? And what does it look like to regional neighbors, especially close allies like India? To talk more about this, I have three amazing guests joining me today from Delhi and Dhaka. First up, I'd like to introduce Shazia Ilmi. She's a leader and the national spokesperson of India's ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. Welcome, Shazia. Well, thank you for joining us today. I also have Dr. Suvrokamal Dutta. He is an acclaimed political, economic, and foreign policy expert. He's joining us from Delhi. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And also joining me from Dhaka is Awami League leader and former squadron leader Sadrul Ahmed Khan. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Tulika, for having me on board.
Well, thank you for joining me. And I'll dive right into the subject. Shazia, I'll start with you first. Look at the situation in India's neighbor, Pakistan. It's going to go to polls on the 8th of February, just 1 month after Bangladesh holds its elections. And look at the situation there. Imran Khan, one of the most popular leaders, continues to be in jail. He's banned from politics for about 5 years. And everything is being done to keep him out of the election at any cost. What does it say about the democratic crisis there?
There is indeed a huge democratic crisis there in Pakistan. And it has not happened for the first time. And Pakistan has failed again and again. I think it doesn't deserve to be called a democracy anymore because such is the state of institutions over there. If you look at the judiciary, if you look at the executive, and you just see how from time to time it is being undermined by the elements in the army and other forces. So there is definitely a huge constitutional crisis in Pakistan. And I really wish the media looked more at the state of affairs in Pakistan, which is actually unraveling at this point of time, instead of pointing fingers at Bangladesh, which remains committed to the idea of democracy, despite all the challenges that it faces.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at the latest developments. Former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has just returned from a self imposed exile in London after 5 years. He continues to be under trial for corruption, but most people believe that he is again going to be the next Prime Minister after having struck a deal with a powerful army.
You spelled it out, Tulika, the deal. Now, who is in a position to strike a deal? How do these breakthroughs happen? How are political leaderships decided upon? And this is the key. So if the chief of the army or intelligence there, and I don't want to get into further details of that because it is not my place, but if they were to strike a deal or have an understanding with a so-called leader, and they will be the ones reinstating that leader as the head of Pakistan's executive. Now, how does it augur for Pakistan's democracy? Where do interests of Pakistan and its citizens lie? Totally in the hands and in the fate of these deal-making abilities of his generals, of his intelligence agencies, and the army. And I think that is so unfortunate. Everything is being done to keep Imran Khan away. He has been debarred from fighting elections. We don't know how it's going to play out. Apparently, another deal is being struck between him and they were looking at some kind of a tacit understanding for him also to flee or go into exile. So, is this how democracies work? Through a deal which a general makes with the different leaders of Pakistan from time to time, like a revolving game of thrones. It is indeed unfortunate And I feel
Absolutely.
my heart goes out to the people of Pakistan who are facing the worst economic crisis as we speak about the constitutional crisis of
So
having a decent leadership. So it is really unfortunate the state of affairs in Pakistan are miserable. And
absolutely. And on that note, I'll come to you, Sadrul, and I want to talk about Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who is also known as the daughter of democracy. She is the longest serving female head of government, having already won more elections than Margaret Thatcher or Indira Gandhi. But for this election, there is also a serious anti incumbency emotion against her. How does Awami League plan to counter that?
Thank you so much. So, as I was listening to the previous speaker, Shana Zenmi, and she has described the situation of Pakistan very elaborately. And before coming to my point, I like to add one of my favorite comment that every country has an army, but only Pakistan army has a country.
well said.
Thank you. So coming to point of Bangladesh, so for the last 15 years, Awami League is in power, and Prime Minister Hasina has done so much of development, and all the mega project has almost come inaugurated or almost come to an end. So all
Yes.
these things are the main strength of Awami League at this moment. And for the last 6 months or so, Awami League is publishing this development story to the whole nation, even in the rural areas where the Wi-Fi and other things are not available, projecting in power points and projectors. So this is the main ways and means of Awami League
Yes.
to face that notion.
Right. Now, the United States has always had big concerns about free and fair elections in Bangladesh, but the recent 2+2 ministerial dialogue, the official statement at a press briefing just said that Bangladesh election is a domestic matter. That seems to be a huge change in the stance of the United States. Do you think India has played any role in changing this?
Well, Tulika, you have asked me the most controversial question. And I should say the most tough question. But before I answer this, I would start my analysis with Joy Bharat and Joy Bangla. And I was listening to my colleague Shazia. She did mention about the crisis in Pakistan. In my understanding, Pakistan is a failed state. It is the social and the economic disintegration of Pakistan has already happened. The world is actually waiting for the political disintegration of Pakistan. And I will not be surprised if in next couple of months or next couple of years, we see emergence of new countries out of the dead body of Pakistan. Having said that, now let me come to your original question. The recent 2+2 dialogue here in New Delhi, which was attended by top dignitaries from United States of America, as well as by the Honorable Prime Minister of Bharat. There were threadbare discussions on several areas, on several issues, not only concerning South Asia or for that matter, West Asia, Middle East, but also Indo-Pacific and the immediate neighborhood. In the immediate neighborhood, I would like to mention here is like a situation in Sri Lanka, situation in Bangladesh, situation in Nepal, Afghanistan, Pakistan, etc. Now, there were very frank discussion in all these areas, and the fact that in the joint declaration, they have mentioned that this is an internal issue of Bangladesh. I think that is a sensible thing, and it's a sensible take on part of the US leadership. And I do understand that the back channel of Indian diplomacy, and especially of the Honorable Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji, and the statesmanship of the Honorable Prime Minister might have played a very pivotal role in this. Because a couple of weeks back or a couple of months back, United States of America was extremely concerned about situation in Bangladesh. And US were saying that there is no chance of any fair election taking place in Bangladesh.
Absolutely.
So from there coming to this turn, it does show that yes, perhaps in the back door, significant things must have been discussed between
Hmm.
the Prime Minister of Bharat and the US leadership, and that's the reason US has come with this kind of a conclusion that the election in Bangladesh is a domestic affair.
Absolutely. On the economic front, Bangladesh has achieved tremendous growth. And I want to quote some figures by the World Bank here. The national GDP of Bangladesh was $6.2 billion in 1971. In 2021, it rose to $416 billion. Now, that is a huge success. But this enviable economic success also comes at the cost of growing inequality. Now, is that a real concern? How is Awami League, how is Prime Minister Hasina going to address this growing inequality when you look at the economic case of Bangladesh?
Well, Bangladesh is definitely going to a transition period, and when the transition comes, yes, there are a question or a chance of question for the inequalities, and the way Bangladesh is moving forward, it's really appreciated by all over the world. But again, Bangladesh have the crisis of Rohingya also. Bangladesh
Hmm.
is hosting a huge amount of Rohingya, which actually not a domestic problem; it's an international problem. And we
Yes.
all need easy neighbors, because if a flood happens in Kenya, it doesn't affect Bangladesh. But if it's a heavy
Hmm.
rain in India, we are in trouble. Bangladesh has to think about it. If there is a influx of the Rohingya in Bangladesh, again,
Hmm.
India needs to trouble. And
Hmm.
if you remember, in 2004, there was 10 trucks of illegal arms seized in Chittagong airport, and it was
Hmm.
a headache for the India. It was saying for the arms were going to the Seven Sisters.
Hmm.
So I want to make the point that Bangladesh is in transition. There are maybe some equalities, but it will be over when the full phase of transition is over. And
Okay.
so far that Bangladesh Awami League is looking after for the basic needs of the people, like quality education, houses for the people. And another interesting which was came in the last month, that universal pension scheme for all people. So
Okay.
that's how the Awami League is securing the basic needs of the common people.
Okay, addressing the basic needs, but well, according to the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, about 1% of the Bangladesh population holds more than 16% of the country's wealth. And Dr. Datta, I want to come to you. Earlier, you were saying that there is no middle class in Bangladesh. Um, Dr. Datta, do you also think that this neglected lot, the kind of communities that Sadrul was just mentioning, are they also a strong voter base for, let's say, a Jamaat or a BNP compared to Awami League? How real is this concern?
Yes, this is something which is of a concern for Sheikh Hasina as well as for the Awami League. What I understand is like, and I always say that in Bangladesh, we have two classes of people. One is the very super rich class, and the other one is the super poor class. There is no middle
Hmm.
class in Bangladesh like the way we have here in Bharat. So this is something which actually generates a lot of social disparity, economic disparity, ethnic disparity, and regional disparity.
Hmm.
And I believe Sheikh Hasina's government, Sheikh Hasina ji, she always speaks about Unnayone Juar, which means flood of
Hmm.
development.
Hmm.
Yes, definitely, there has been huge amount of development in Bangladesh in the last 10 years or so. There is no reason to not to accept that. Yes, Bangladesh
Hmm.
has been doing very well on several social and economic parameters. The economy of Bangladesh is a stable economy. It is a resilient economy. But I do understand that this disparity of wealth or the disparate distribution of wealth is something which is of a major concern. And it
Hmm.
should be a concern for Awami League because in my understanding, BNP and the Jamaat, they actually succeed in in manipulating the poorer section of the society in Bangladesh, in
Okay.
instigating them against the ruling government. And BNP has been famous in doing this. So most of the
Hmm.
voters and the supporters of BNP, a large segment of that is actually from the very illiterate and the poorer lot and the downtrodden people in Bangladesh, across the
Hmm.
swath of Bangladesh as such. And I think Awami League has to address this issue, because my concern is like Sheikh Begum Khalida Zia, whenever she has been in power, there has
Hmm.
been sectarian violence, there has been regional violence, there has been
Yes.
huge violence against the minority community, especially the Hindus. And it has been in the culture of BNP and Khalida Zia to patronize all the fringe elements and the extremist elements. We have seen in the past that whenever BNP has come to power, led by Khalida Zia Begum, I mean, there has been huge rise in Talibanization of Bangladesh, and ISI of Pakistan plays in a huge role there. Then, so this,
Okay.
and there is a spillover effect of that across the nook and
Hmm.
corner of Bharat, and we do get destabilized. The northeastern part of Bharat gets
Hmm.
destabilized, and Bengal and us, Bihar and all also faces the brunt. So
Hmm.
it is a common problem of the Bangladesh leadership and the Bharatiya leadership, and I think Bangladesh has to address this in a clear-cut way. I personally, myself, I would want Sheikh Hasina ji to come back to power with a thumping majority, so that there is stability inside Bangladesh also, and there is stability in South Asia. Because God
Hmm.
forbid, the crisis which is happening in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and if BNP and Jamaat takes over Bangladesh, then there would be a huge domino effect of that in Bangladesh also. And that would create in a kind of a catastrophe. And I personally, myself, I would never want that kind of a situation.
So 15 years of Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh has seen a lot of ups and downs. And Sadul, I'll come to you and ask you about these 15 years of Sheikh Hasina and what lies in the future.
Okay, before coming to her 15 years, I would like to highlight her political career. She was involved in student politics, and after Bangladesh got independent, she pursued her masters from Dhaka University, and she was a Awami League political activist in Dhaka
Hmm.
University as well. So after 75, she was at 75 when the tragedy happened. She was not in country, so she survived. And in 1981, she came back to Bangladesh. But again, that time Bangladesh Awami League was not in that much political shape. So her struggle begins, and
Okay.
it was not like a silver spoon on mouth. She had to stride all over the country, all of the political issues, and day after day, she is here where she is now. In 91
Hmm.
election, she was opposition leader, and in 96 she got to be the prime minister for the first time. But again, 2001 she lost, and in 2008 she again came to power. So about her political career is very much well trained, well regimented, I must say.
Hmm.
And it was
Hmm.
not a matter of luck. It is something not she waited. It is something she earned. And 15
Hmm.
years, the mega project that we were talking about now, these are the major achievements. But the major challenge was the caretaker government.
This was
And
earlier abolished from the constitution because of the crisis that happened at that time. But that remains the main center of the controversy right now. There is a lot of confusion and lack of clarity. Everybody keeps demanding a neutral caretaker government.
constitution amendment was done in 2011. At that
Yes.
time, BNP was also in the parliament. I was
Hmm.
there in the parliament on duty that time. So I
Okay.
have seen the process was very easy, and as per the parliamentary decorum, the voting done. And after long discussion, I think over a month or so, there was discussion. Then the voting came place, and then the constitution amendment took place. And it's rather a politically imposed demand, because if there is a caretaker government, there is a very good chance to put someone which is choice by any other party or other country, to put him in power for a certain period of time. So
like earlier,
Yes.
Bangladesh's experience, the military taking control and sending a
Yes.
lot of big political leaders to prison. So Bangladesh doesn't want to go through that crisis again. But there continues to be this ongoing demand for a neutral caretaker government, which has become this big issue worldwide. It's become the key word that, unless there is a neutral caretaker government, Bangladesh cannot have transparent polls. What are the measures that Bangladesh is taking to ensure free and fair polls? So, Dr. Datta, you want to come in?
Well, in relation to the caretaker government in Bangladesh itself, if I'm not mistaken, and Shardul might correct me if I'm mistaken, I think recently the election commissioners of the various South Asian countries, they were invited for a conference in Bangladesh. The former chief election commissioner of India, he had said that Bangladesh should actually take in certain good things from how the election commission here in India operates. If during the assembly election or during the national election, India is going to the polls, Bharat is going to the polls next year. The Lok Sabha election will be taking place next year. So the Chief Election Commission of India and the Chief Election Commissioner and the other election commissioners, they actually play the role of a caretaker government. And they take all the all the powers and rules and regulations and duties into their hand, and they ensure that a free and fair election takes place across the nook and corner of Bharat. So, if that kind of a thing can be replicated in the case of Bangladesh, it is a suggestion from my side for the ruling Awami League that perhaps they can actually give in more powers to the Election Commission of Bangladesh and make them conduct in a free and fair poll, and let the Bangladesh Election Commission become the caretaker government, and let's have the poll under the guidance of the Election Commission of Bangladesh. Why this hue and cry about a caretaker government?
So first of all, the English Election Commission is now sovereign. It's not it has an independent secretariat and it is running under that. An election commission is not only doing this parliamentary election, all the local election, municipality, and even club election also looked after by this election commission. So Awami government has made this provision of make this election commission independent. And another thing is that earlier there were no clear ballot box. Now Bangladesh election commission has introduced the ballot boxes. Earlier there were no voter list. The name was there, but now they have given the booklet with the picture, so that cannot be any trespass or vote rigging. And then another slogan that Prime Minister Hasina started, "Amar vote ami dibo, jake khushi take dibo." So she is very much firm on that note.
What does it mean for India if, let's say, a Jamaat or a BNP forms the next government and not Awami League?
Well, Tulika, I guess earlier I had explained in length the role of the BNP and the Jamaat and what kind of a crisis situation happens in Bangladesh whenever Khalida Zia has been the prime minister of Bangladesh. There has been huge torturing, butchering of the minorities, and the Hindus had to flee Bangladesh.
But do you expect the same happening again? Times have changed. Jamaat has held its first political rally after such a long time and seems to be gaining a lot of voter base also.
It does. I do see a lot of attempts for violence during the time of poll and before and after election. And all this would be handiwork of the BNP and the Jamaat. And I think that is where the major challenge is for Sheikh Hasina's government. And I think it is a major challenge for Bangladesh police also, as well as the Bangladesh army. And BNP and Jamaat might terrorize the minority community to prevent them from voting for Awami League, because they all know that the 8 to 9% Hindu community which is there in Bangladesh, and the Buddhists and the Christians, which is another 2%, they and block vote for the Awami League. And Khalida Zia knows this, and the Jamaat also knows this. So their main target would be the minority community, and they would try to block en masse the voting of the minority community for the Awami League.
Also, speaking of political leadership, what's the kind of strong connection that you see between the leaders of our two countries, Prime Minister Hasina and Prime Minister Narendra Modi?
Well, the personal connection or the personal chemistry between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, this was so glaring, and it was absolutely clear during the G21 summit here in New Delhi. If the premier of both the countries, they enjoy a personal friendship, then several nitty-gritties and several complexities of economic, social, and international dynamics, as well as diplomatic relationship gets resolved, and it gets resolved in a brilliant way. And we have seen in the past the personal chemistry of the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji and Sheikh Hasina was a pioneer in solving the border problem between India and Bangladesh in exchange of the conclaves as such, and several water sharing agreements had also happened, whether it was with Feni or whether it was with Shurba Kushiara River or with Barak River. And of course, Tista is an issue, and in my understanding, that will also be resolved in due course of time. So if Awami League comes back to power, and I personally myself, I have a strong feeling that Awami League will be coming back to power because of the stupendous work which Sheikh Hasina's government has done for the people of Bangladesh in relation to economic upliftment, social upliftment, in controlling sectarian violence, religious violence, and also the image which Bangladesh has established itself as a strong democratic power at the international level after several military coups in the past, So all this credit goes to Sheikh Hasina. And I think it's because of this, and she is a steward leader in herself, like the way the Honorable Prime Minister of India is, So with that of a personal friendship, and if Awami League comes back to power, I would say that the relationship between Bangladesh and Bharat, the relationship is of huge contours, and it is going to solidify further. And there would be issues of concerns, but this would be what we say in Hindi, nok chok, or in Bangla, choto choto jhagra, poribarer bhetore, like small trivial squabbling within a family. So those kind of things would be there, but everything would be resolved in a very amicable way. And it would be for the healthy democracy of India, of Bangladesh, as well as for healthy democracy of Bharat, that Awami League comes back to power.
Yes, Sadrul, you want to come in?
Yes, when I just want to share my feelings that Bharat and Bangladesh worked together for more than 50 years, but the progress happened in last decade is unprecedented. Prime Minister Modi and Sheikh Hasina has shown the understanding of priorities, and the result is several big projects such as coastal surveillance radar to combat maritime risk, then transborder rail lines, energy corridor, diesel and friendship pipeline, and waterway corridor. All those examples of good neighbors and neighborhood first.
Well, you cannot change your neighbors, but for now, safeguarding democracy remains the key priority. And on that wonderful note, I'd like to thank you both for joining this insightful discussion today. Thank you.
I end up once again with Joy Bharat and Joy Bangla.
Joy Bangla.
And for our viewers, I hope you're going back with a more in-depth understanding of Bangladesh election and safeguarding democracy there. Do feel free to connect with me on my email, tulika.bhatnagar@pressexpress.org, or say hi to me on my Facebook or X. Till we meet next time, it's Namaste from Tulika.